Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our session on kashrut, the kosher laws. We're going to begin by learning all about basar b'chalav, meat and milk. In order to do that, we can't go into why we wait between meat and milk. We have to understand what exactly are we talking about when we say meat and milk. Not all meat and all milk are the same. So we have to understand that. So we're going to begin by having a look at the Torah. And the Torah has a pasuk, has a verse, which comes up 3 times. And that verse is, Lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo. You're not allowed to cook a kid, a baby goat, in its mother's milk. And that phrase, in that exact wording, is how it appears 3 times in our Torah. Okay, once in Parshat Mishpatim, once in Parshat Kitisa, and finally in Parshat Re'eh in Sefer Devarim. Okay? In source number 2, we have a teaching by Rabbi Yishmael. Okay? And there it says, Debei Rabbi Yishmael Tana, the house of Rabbi Yishmael taught, Lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo, shalosh pa'amim. It comes up 3 times in the Torah. We know the Torah doesn't repeat things without a reason. Therefore, the fact that it's repeated twice over means that those additional 2 times must be teaching me something. It says, Echad li'isur achila. 1 time we learn it's forbidden to eat it. Echad li'isur hana'a. 1, it's prohibited to derive any benefit from it, financial benefit, for example. Ve'echad le'isur bishul. And 1 is forbidden to cook. Okay? So we're learning from here that there are 3 prohibitions. Okay? And each of these prohibitions is d'oraita. Cooking, eating, and deriving benefit. Because if it was only cooking, the Torah would not have taught it 3 times. That is the lesson which Rabbi Yishmael is teaching. Okay? We go into source number 3, and we have a look at the words of the Torah. And the Torah says the same thing as the Gemara, as Rabbi Yishmael. The fact that it says don't cook a kid, a baby goat, in its mother's milk. And it's mentioned 3 times in the Torah. Echad isur bishul. 1 is telling me it's forbidden to cook. Echad isur achila. 1 is forbidden to eat. Ve'echad isur hana'a. And 1 is forbidden to get any benefit from it. V'hotzi isur achila b'lashon bishul. Lomar she'eino asur min haTorah ela derech bishul. Aval midrabanan asur bechol inyan. Okay, so the Torah tells us the fact that it's the Torah, the Doraita, the biblical prohibition is the cooking, but the eating and the deriving benefit, that is a rabbinic prohibition. And then he adds, Ugdi lav davka. Do adin nami shor seva ez v'loshna b'chalev imo, v'loshna b'chalev acheret, ela shedaber hakatuv behover. And he says it doesn't matter what type of meat it is. It could be an ox, could be a sheep, could be a goat, all types of domesticated kosher animals, meat with kosher animal milk. Okay, for example, cow milk, goat's milk, or even sheep's milk. Okay? The Aruch HaShulchan notes that this is a unique thing that we have here, that not only is it forbidden to eat, not only is it forbidden to eat to eat the meat and milk, it's also forbidden to have a restaurant. So let's say I have a chain of restaurants and I want to serve cheeseburgers, but I don't want to eat them, I just want to serve them. That would be a problem. I can't make money from cheeseburgers. Okay, this is unique amongst, or not unique, but there's a very small category of things which have this limitation where not only are they forbidden to eat, but they're also prohibited to derive benefit. Skipping down to source number 5, the Mishnah says here, and I hinted that already, that again, something which is rare here. Normally we say, and no pun intended with the rare meat. Normally when we say something is forbidden, it's what's unique about kashrut laws and meat and milk is I'm taking two items which are totally permitted, my kosher meat or my kosher cheese. But when I put those two items together, they become prohibited. However, if I have non-kosher meat with kosher cheese, or I have kosher meat and non-kosher milk, that prohibition doesn't apply. So the laws of meat and milk only applies when it's kosher meat and kosher milk. What's also interesting to note here in the end of source number 5, which we're not going to go into too much detail right now, is Rabbi Akiva explains, Chaya va'of enam min haTorah. A wild animal, example such as a deer, or an off, which is a bird like a chicken or turkey, enam min haTorah. That is not prohibited on a Torah level to eat that with milk. So my chicken Kiev, that's only rabbinically prohibited. But meat and milk, the cow with the beef with the cheese, that is biblically prohibited, but chicken and milk is only rabbinically prohibited. And since chicken and milk is only rabbinically prohibited, I would be allowed to, if I wanted to, I would be able to have a restaurant of chicken Kievs, but I'd have a problem with my cheeseburgers. Even if I'm not eating any of them, the cheeseburger is a problem because that's on a biblical level prohibition, whereas the chicken Kiev is only prohibited to eat on a rabbinic level, and so therefore there is no prohibition of deriving benefit. Harambam, the Maimonides notes here, וכן בשר חיה ועוף, בין בחלב חיה, בין בחלב בהמה, אינו אסור באכילה מן התורה, לפיכך מותר לבשלו, מותר בהניה, ואסור באכילה מדברי סופרים, כדי שלא יפשעו העם ויבואו לידי איסור בשר בחלב של תורה, ויאכלו בשר בהמה תורה בחלב בהמה טהורה, שהרי אין משמע הכתוב אלא גדי בחלב עמו, ממש לפיכך איסרו כל בשר בחלב. And the Harambam explains, just as I said to you, that since it's only rabbinically prohibited to eat chicken and milk, the rabbis did not extend on top of that to say it's also rabbinically prohibited to derive benefit or to cook chicken and milk. Okay, it's what's known as a gezerah on a gezerah, a fence law upon a fence law. And since that's the case, the rabbis wanted to be a little kind to us. So we get one moment of relief here where the rabbis weren't 100% strict with us. They do allow us to have to, as I said, we can have our restaurant of chicken Kievs, but we can't have our restaurants of cheeseburgers. Okay, that's the Harambam. And the Rama of Moshe Isserles, who makes his comments on the Shulchan Aruch, codifies the words of the Rambam there to say the same thing, that when the meat and milk is only prohibited on a rabbinic level, then one is allowed to derive benefit. Okay, we're through. We've got what I wanted to do. That's your introduction to what is biblically and what is rabbinically prohibited with meat and milk. Now, from now on, let's understand that every case that we're dealing with is the classical case where it's biblically prohibited meat and milk, okay? We're now going to explain why we have the custom, and I could ask you to all unmute yourselves and ask you, what is your custom between eating meat and having ice cream, having some dairy? And the answers will vary. Some of you will say 6 hours, some will say 5, some might say 4, some might say 3, some could say 1. But what we've seen so far is you're not allowed to cook a kid in its mother's milk. You're not allowed to eat meat and milk together. You're not allowed to derive benefit from it. We haven't seen anywhere in the Torah or the Poskim that one has to wait for that. So now we're going to see where does that come from, and we're going to see that in the Gemara in Masechet Chulin, Daf Kuf Hey Amud Aleph, 105a, and it's right there on your source packet in source number 9. Okay? Everyone's with me? Just give me a little thumbs up if we're doing okay. Thank you. All right. So the Gemara says as follows. Amar Rav Chizda.
Happened to Yalkut Yosef? You don't like?
Oh, I'm Jerry. I'm moving through the sources. The Yalkut Yosef is telling you that you don't have to worry if you put boiling water in your trash can, that perhaps the meat and the milk are going to mix together. I think we're okay with that. So I'm taking our artistic license and skipping that page. You can read that in your leisure. All right. The Gemara says as follows. Amar Rav Chizda. Achal basar, if one ate meat, asor le'echol gevina. It is forbidden to eat cheese. That's all he writes. Amar Ma'ukva. Ma'ukva said, Ana laha milta, I am in this matter, Chala bar chamra, vinegar, the son of wine, legabe abba, compared to my father. Te'ilu abba, because regarding my father, ki hava achel bisra ha'idna, lo hava achel gevina ad lemachar ad hashta. My father, when he would eat meat, he would not eat cheese until the following day at this time, which would imply something along the lines of possibly 24-hour wait. Ve'ilu ana, but regarding me, Bahasudata hava de lo achilna, lesudata achrita achilna. I won't eat meat and cheese in the same meal. So if I'm having a meal now, I wait until the next meal to have cheese. So this is a very interesting Gemara from this perspective of the origin of minhag. Normally, what would I say when it comes to customs? You do exactly what your father does. So if my father keeps 6 hours, I keep 6 hours. If his father kept 24 hours, what was he doing changing his minhag? It's an interesting question. We're not going to talk about it too much tonight, but I just wanted to leave that in the back of your mind for something to prod upon, because there is what to discuss about that. What we're going to focus on is what on earth does it mean when it says from one meal to the next? How long is it from one meal to the next? Is it the same in different parts of the world? Is he talking about a fixed time? What are we to understand this piece of Gemara to mean? And as you can see from the way that I'm presenting it, you're going to see there's a number of different approaches. Okay, the Rosh, that's Rabbeinu Asher, the father of the Torah. The Rabbeinu Asher is very important because he lived in Germany, and because of the persecutions going on in Germany, he moved to Spain in the 1400s. And his son, the Torah, wrote the famous law code, which was the precursor to the Shulchan Aruch, which Rav Yosef Karo wrote his commentary called the Bet Yosef. And the reason why we love the Rosh is because he's bringing all of Minhag Ashkenaz, and he's living in Spain, so he knows the Sephardic position as well. So he explains the Rosh, he brings the Gemara here, Amar Ma'ukva Ana Hamilta Chala Bar Chamra. He quotes the whole thing that I'm the vinegar, the son of wine, because my father would wait 24 hours, but I would go from one meal to the next. If we turn over the page, he says, Perush. Everyone see where it says Perush on the top of the line there? He says, explains, Bizmana Sheragil Adam Lisod, Dahainu, mizman su'udat haboker ad zman su'udat ha'erev. What does this mean? If someone has, in those times, you know, we talk about having 3 square meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They had 2 square meals a day. They had a late morning meal, a brunch as it were, and they had an evening meal or a late afternoon, early evening meal. So he says that time from the brunch to the late afternoon. In that time period, one would not eat cheese after meat. For we have not found, he explains, why is it that we have to wait this amount of time? Because he says, even the lenient approach, if I want to go by the Gemara, there's 2 shitot. One is 24 hours. The lenient approach is 1 meal to the next. And he says in our countries, which I assume means both Germany and Spain in the Middle Ages, they had a morning meal and an evening meal. And so therefore, he says, we go by the lenient position, which is mar ukva, and he at least waits that time period. He doesn't specify exactly how long it does, but Harambam, Maimonides, does so in source number 11. And he says, Misha achal basar betchila, bein basar behema, bein basar of, lo yochal acharav chalav, ad sheyeh benehen kidei shiur su'uda acheret, vehu kemo shesh shaot. He says, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make sure that I'm waiting the proper time. And the time is from 1 meal to the next, which is ka shesh shaot, or kamo shesh shaot, around 6 hours. Okay, so here we're establishing the Sephardic approach, which is Harambam, which is kamo shesh shaot. Okay, the Lechem Mishneh, which is a commentary on Harambam, explains, Umefaresh Rabbeinu, Sheben Seuda le Seuda, Shesh Shaot, the time between 1 meal and the next meal is 6 hours. Sheken Seudat Talmidei Hachamim B'Sha'a Shishit, Uma Ukva Talmid Hacham Hava, V'imken Misham Ad Shesh Shaot Have Seuda Acheret. So he's just explaining where Harambam came up with the 6 hours. Okay, that a Talmid Hacham would eat in the 6th hour, which is, let's say, around noon time. And you'd have a lunch and have a dinner. I guess they didn't have much of a breakfast in the Middle Ages. So if I just look here and we were to stop this class right now, which I'm not going to do, but if I were to stop right now, the Sephardic approach of waiting 6 hours seems to be where we get it from, okay? We're not going by the 24-hour period. We're going by this 1 meal to the next, and it's normal to have a late morning, early lunch meal and to have a late afternoon, early evening meal for dinner. Okay, that's the approach. Approach number 2 is from Tosfot. And Tosfot says something which, if it wasn't written in print, you'd never believe me. Tosfot says, what is the definition of a meal? How do I break up 1 meal to the next? Very clearly. I clear the table and I do Bikat Hamazon. Once I've done that, I can go to another meal. So he says as follows, Lesudata achrita achilna. He says, Lav besudata shrigidin nasot achat shachrit v'achat arvit. We're not talking about the normal meals of 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening. Ela afilu la'altar, even immediately. In silek hashulchan, if one removed the table, which means clearing off the table, in those days they had portable tables. It's almost like how you have today if someone's having a TV dinner and they've got like a small table in front of them. You remove the table, uberach, and you did Birkat Hamazon, mutar, udlo plug rabbanan, and the rabbis they're not making a distinction here, which is, that's the definition of ending a meal. It ends when you've done Birkat Hamazon. So Tosfot says you could do that. We can limit it from 1 meal to the next, okay? And that 1 meal to the next is just cleaning off the table and doing Birkat Hamazon. Okay, that's one Tosfot. Here we're going to see another Tosfot. And here the Tosfot says, Rabbeinu Tam Mefaresh, V'chen Halachat Gedolot. These are two very important Ashkenazic positions. Rabbeinu Tam is one of the grandsons of Rashi. He says, De'achal basar, if one ate meat, asur lechol gevina, it's forbidden to eat cheese. Hainu, that is, belo netila v'kinuach. That is, if you have not washed your hands or cleaned out your mouth. Okay? And this is the position, back then, they didn't have knives and forks, and so you'd eat with the food in your mouth, you put it in, so you'd have to first clean your hands to make sure there's no grease left on there, and you need to rinse out your mouth. Aval benetila v'kinuach shareh. If as long as you have washed your hands and cleaned out your mouth, it's permitted. Uma ukva delo achael ad seuda achriti, hainu belo netila v'kinuach. And when he said he would wait from one meal to the next, that's only because he had not washed his hands or brushed his teeth, as it were. Iname machmir al atzmo hava. Or we want to say that he was strict upon himself. But strictly speaking, says Tosfot, here we go. Two positions which I can add up as one. I have to do Birkat Hamazon and clean the table. Or number two, all I need to do is brush my teeth and clean my hands. So far, it seems like we Sfaradim are being the strict ones and the Ashkenazim are the lenient ones. So how do we codify this in halacha? And I tell you an important rule which you should all commit to memory. There are three rabbis that the Shulchan Aruch calls his pillars, of which he will base his halacha. One of them is the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, one of them is the Rambam, and one of them is the Rif. And he will do 2 out of 3. So we've seen the Rosh and the Rambam, they both say the same thing. Wait 6 hours. And we have these positions of Tosfot of cleaning out the mouth, brushing your teeth as it were, and doing Birkat Hamazon. Who do you think we're going to go by in Shulchan Aruch? No surprises. Shulchan Aruch's position is Achal Basar, if one ate meat, Afilu Shel Chayav off, even if it's a wild animal like a deer, or off like a chicken or a turkey. Lo yochal gevina acharav, you're not allowed to eat cheese after it. Ad sheyisheh sheshaot, until you've waited 6 hours. Va'afilu im shaha keshiur, and even if you waited the amount of time of 6 hours, im yesh basar bein hashinayim, if you have meat between the teeth, sarich lahasiro, you need to get your toothpick out, you need to brush your teeth and remove it. V'haloes latinok, and then before they had food processors, or you had ready-made kids' food, how did you make it good for kids to eat? You had to chew it yourself. And he says if you had to chew the food for your baby, you would need to wait as well. Okay? That's the Shulchan Aruch. The Rama is interesting. Rav Moshe Isserles, who's bringing down the Minhag Ashkenaz, I would expect him to say what? Exactly like Tosfot. And hear me well what he says here. Haga. V'im matzah, and if he found achar kach basar shebein hashinayim, meat that was in between the teeth, umsira, he needs to remove it. That's sarich lahadiach piv, he needs to rinse out his mouth, kodem shiochal gevina, before he eats the cheese. That's exactly like Tosfot. All you need to do is remove the food from the teeth. He's left out rinsing, he's left out the, cleaning their hands. Clearly by then, they must have upgraded themselves to using silverware. They must have started using knives and forks. The Yesh Omrim, and there are those who say, De'ein sarich lahamtin shesh shaot, you don't need to wait 6 hours, that is the Rambam and the Rosh. Rak miyad, even immediately, im silek uberech Birkat Hamazon, if you remove the table and you've done Birkat Hamazon, Mutar yedei kinuach v'hadacha. It's permitted, provided that you have brushed your teeth and washed off and rinsed out your mouth. V'haminhag pashut b'medinot elu, and here is the widespread custom in Ashkenaz. Lahamtin achar achila habasar sha'achat. They would wait 1 hour. Now, there are not many Ashkenazim today who wait 1 hour. This is the minhag of the Dutch. Okay, Dutch Jews wait 1 hour after eating meat. Then they would eat cheese. Mihu, however, there's only one proviso. They have to make sure that they did bikad hamazon after the meat. Because only then is it considered another meal. And then it's permitted to eat according to the lenient position, which is the position of Tosfot. But if you did not do bikad hamazon, lo mahane hamtinat sha'ah, then waiting an hour doesn't do anything. Ve'ein chiluk im himtin hasha'ah kodem bikad hamazon or achar kach. And it doesn't matter if one waits before the bikad hamazon or after it. You've got to make sure that you've got to make sure it doesn't matter. He's not talking about here is whether is it an hour after bikad hamazon or an hour after you finish eating. You've got to make sure that the bikad hamazon was done. V'matzar basar ben shinav, and if he found meat between the teeth afterwards, achar sha'a, after the 1 hour, tzarich lenakol hasiro, he needs to remove it. V'yesh omrim, de'ein levarech bikad hamazon amanat lechol gevina. It's forbidden to have the mindset, I'm doing bikad hamazon right now because I know I'm having ice cream right after. Aval ein nizharim bazeh. However, he says you don't need to be careful with this. Okay, so if I was to stop here, I would say that the Ashkenazic position is what? 1 hour if you're strict. But all you really need to do is bikad hamazon, rinse out your mouth, and maybe floss, brush your teeth. That's about it. And then he adds the following. When you want to be strict, wait an hour, but then he adds the following. V'yesh medakdekim. And there are those who are strict or are very careful. Lahamtin shesh sha'ot achar achilat basar legvina. And they wait 6 hours after eating meat before going on to eating cheese. V'chein nachon la'asot. And this is the correct thing to do. So I want to show you something. It's a sociological experiment here, just as I showed you that perhaps washing of the hands developed from the Middle Ages until the 1600s. So too, the customs here are developing. So they're going from waiting maybe 0 time to being strict and waiting 1 hour in the Middle Ages to in the 1600s, they're thinking about 6 hours. And then in the course of a couple of generations through the Shach and the Taz, which we're going to see here in sources 16 and 17, Minhag Ashkenaz became almost exclusively to wait 6 hours. It says as follows here. V'chein nachon la'asot, and so it's correct to do. V'chein katav maharashal. V'chein roi la'asot l'chol mi sheyesh bo reach Torah. Whoever thinks they have the smell of Torah, they have a taste of Torah, that person waits 6 hours. Now, come on, who doesn't want to be considered having a smell of Torah about them? Of course, they want to be considered fragrant, and therefore, the Shach says one should wait 6 hours like the Marashal. And then the Torah Zahav, another Ashkenazic commentary in Poland, living in the 17th century, writes, Aval b'bnei Torah ra'ui limchot v'lig'or b'hem shelo yakilu pachot mishesh sha'ot. Not only should we do it, it's proper to reprimand those that don't do it. So I'm trying to explain to you here, if I went to the time machine and I went to the 1500s, to Germany, and I wanted to see how long they were waiting between meat and milk, I think the vast majority of the people were waiting 1 hour, if that. I then fast forward 100 years or 200 years, I don't think you were to find a single person who wasn't waiting 6 hours. And it's because of these two positions here, the Shach and the Taz. Okay, the Rama is hinting at something. It's a good thing to do. the Shach and the Taz? Do you have a hint of a smell of Torah about you? We should control the people who don't do it properly. Now, don't worry, I don't think we're going to get to it today, but we are going to look at the Yekesha Minhag, the German Minhag of waiting 3 hours, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Just before we continue, I do want to add that although almost all Sephardic Jews that I've met keep 6 hours, I do know Sephardic Jews who also keep 3 hours. And so although it's an interesting thing to say, what is the Sephardic approach? I always say the main Sephardic approach is 6 hours, but there are caveats. In the Ashkenazic approach, we're going to see they can range anywhere from 1 hour to 3 to 4 to 5 and to 6. And we'll see some of those as well as we come along. So everyone needs to keep 6 hours, so it would seem until now. But not everyone really needs to keep 6 hours. There are those who don't fit into that rule book. And this is an important thing to know. If someone is a choleh, a sick person, pashut de choleh le'onso hashoteh לרפואתו שאינו צריך להמתין אחר אכילתו בשר יותר משעה אחת, שקבע בירך ברכת המזון וישתה ורווחה לה. He says here that if someone is sick, they can rely on the lenient position of Tosfot and eat dairy even after an hour. This is true for Ashkenazim, and it's true for Sephardim. We do not hold this position of needing to wait 6 hours if someone is sick. Okay, but one does need to make sure that they've done Birkat HaMazon, because remember that was the position. You can do so provided you've done Birkat HaMazon. Hacham Ovadia Yosef is asked here, someone ate meat, shall pi hadin tzarich leshahot 6 sha'ot kedei sheyeh mutar b'machlei chalav. So someone who ate meat, and he normally has to wait 6 hours before eating dairy, but he forgot he was meaty. Okay, he forgot that he'd had some meat. He forgot he was karneh. Ha'im rashai hu lit'om kol shehu kedei shelo tiyeh birkato levatala. He ate dairy. Is he allowed? And he's about to make the beracha. He makes the bracha of Shakol Niyah Bidvaro, and he wants to try the dairy food. Is he allowed to eat it when he just realizes, no, I'm still karneh? Can he wait? Can he eat and make that? Can he eat the food so the bracha is not in vain, or does he still need to wait 6 hours? Says Hacham Ovadia, Maran Shulchan Aruch Yoredea Psak B'divrei Harif Harabam V'Arosh B'siyatam Shetzarich Lahamtin 6 sha'ot bein basar b'chalav. It's true that all the heavy hitters, the Rif, the Rambam, and the Rosh, say you need to wait 6 hours between meat and milk. And the Rama wrote that the minhag was only to wait 1 hour, whether it was from meat to cheese. Ela shemevarchim birkat hamazon achar sudat habasar she'az nechshevet kesuda acheret. And he's just explaining the position of the Ashkenazim and the Sephardim there in Shulchan Aruch. He says the Sephardim was to wait 6 hours, where the Ashkenazim wait only an hour. And even though she'anachnu kibalnu horat Maran, even though we follow like Maran, like Shulchan Aruch, and we need to wait 6 hours between meat and milk, nevertheless, letzorech choli, for a sick person, it's widespread that it's permitted to eat dairy foods after 1 hour, as we just saw before. And then he continues, in our scenario where we have 2 competing issues, one is not to take Hashem's name in vain, not Isat Shem Elokecha Lashav, and we have the issue of going against Harambam of waiting 6 hours. Yesh lahadif b'nidon zeh lit'om kol shehu. The best thing to do is to taste a small amount of the dairy, kedei shelo tiyeh bracha levatala, in order to not be a blessing in vain. And to me, I look at Hacham Ovadia, and this seems to be a no-brainer. Like, it's such a straightforward case, which is taking Hashem's name in vain. That's a doraita. That's a biblical prohibition. And not waiting the full 6 hours, that's holding, whether you hold like the Rambam or you hold like another, or you hold like Tosfot. So to me, it's absolutely. And yet, I sure here in source number 21, where he holds differently. The Rav Moshe Levi, author of the series Menuchat Ahava and Birkat Hashem, wonderful Sfarim, also a Sephardic Sefer, says, Misha achal basar, v'toch shesh shaot shachach u'berech ha'gvinat o chalav, v'nizkar kodem she'it'om mehem, asur lo lit'om klum mehem. There, the Birkat Hashem says, if one ate meat and he was within the 6 hours and he forgot and he started to make the bracha over the cheese or the milk, and he realized right before tasting, it is forbidden to him to taste at all. And I have to say, I'm in wonderment. I don't understand it. It really doesn't make any sense. And then here, on the top of page 35, we have the position of the Tshuvot and the Hanhagot of Rav Moshe Sternbach, and he brings up these two positions, and he says that unsurprisingly, he holds like Hacham Ovadia, that if one was in this situation, even if they normally hold to wait 6 hours, since we're dealing with a bracha levatala, making a bracha in vain, we follow that one can break it, even if it was 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, and make the bracha over the dairy, just a small amount, so it's not a bracha levatala, so it's not a bracha in vain. Okay. We're now going to see this whole position here of waiting into the 6th hour, okay? Which is it 6 full hours? Is it 5 and a bit? What does that look like? The Meiri lived in Provence. And Provence, just so you understand, is southern France, northern Spain region. And it was its own school of rabbinic thought, its own halachic realm. And the Meiri was lost to the Jewish world for about 600 or 700 years. So it's a very interesting sefer to read, but in halacha, it doesn't have a major role to play because it was lost to our rabbis for those hundreds of centuries. It was one of those things where these manuscripts are found and they're incredible works, but they're lost to the halachic tapestry that went through with it. So it says as follows: ולא מצינו בשהיה זו פחות משיעור שבין סעודה לסעודה, והוא 6 שעות או קרוב לזה, שבשיעור זה נתעכל אף במקומו ואינו קרוי עוד בשר. We've not found the time of waiting to be less than the interval between one meal and another, which is 6 hours or close to it. For in this time, the food has been digested, even in its place, and is no longer considered meat. And it says here, V'ano machmirim, we are strict, ad sheishesh 6 sha'ot, to make sure that we're waiting 6 hours, or 5, or even just 5 hours. Kashiur sheben suda lesuda, zohi shitchen. Okay, this is zohi shitatena. This is our opinion. So we see here from the Meiri this position that it could be 6 hours or it could be 5 hours, as in he wasn't being too strict on whether it was 5 or 6. Okay. We are going to stop early tonight because we're having early mincha. So we're going to stop here. And next time, we're going to pick it up and see these other positions of into the 6th hour, not into the 6th hour, and everything else which goes with it. Okay? And if you have any questions, please feel